Hello friends and welcome back to the studio. This is Susie with Gemini Connect, and this is the very first video in a little mini-series in which I'm going to teach you about your camera settings. This video is aimed at beginners or those who would like to get their camera off of auto and into manual or semi-manual modes. There are many settings to your camera and it can be super overwhelming to learn how they all work. But there are three main settings in particular that can get you started shooting really professional or better photos right off the bat. And those three settings are aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. I'm going to follow up this video with smaller separate videos talking about each of these settings and exactly what they mean and how to apply them in camera. But for now, in this intro video, I'm going to teach you about where to find those basic settings on your camera and also after you've taken a photo. We'll also talk about why shooting manual is important and why you should strive to get your camera off of auto in the first place. So let's start with that topic first. First of all, shooting manual is important for both shooting photos and videos, but your ideal settings for video are a little bit different than those for photo. But either way, it's still important whether you're shooting photo or video to understand shooting manual and also aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. So most cameras, especially mirrorless cameras and DSLRs, come with several different photo modes. And the most basic ones to start off with are auto or program mode. These are really great for beginners because all you have to do is switch your camera to one of those modes and you can start shooting right away. However, because it's an automated process, sometimes your camera gets your settings wrong when you have it in auto. So if you want an image such as this long exposure, or the ability to shoot in low lighting, or a photo with really creamy bokeh or that blurred out background, then these are all examples where you'll probably have to take your camera off of automatic and shoot in a semi-manual or full manual mode instead. So full manual mode is pretty scary because that gives you full control over all of your settings. But if you want to bridge the gap in between auto and full manual, you can go with two semi-manual modes. There is shutter speed priority and aperture priority. If you choose one of those two semi-manual modes, that not only eases the transition into full manual, but it also helps you focus in on a single setting such as aperture or shutter speed so that you can really practice and understand what they mean. Next, let's talk about where to find your exact camera settings. There are two places in particular. Number one is inside of your camera. So most modern day cameras such as mirrorless cameras and DSLRs will have an LCD screen on the back. You might have to toggle your display settings, but eventually you should reach a screen that looks somewhat like this. The exact screens are going to vary depending on what kind of camera that you're using, but the display should still show you the essential settings. Some of those essential settings include shutter speed, which is shown as a fraction, aperture, which is displayed as a number after the letter F, and also ISO, which is indicated as ISO. There also might be a letter which shows you what mode you're shooting in. Now there are a bunch of other symbols and other settings here, but let's not worry about those for now. The main ones to worry about are shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. The second place where you can find your camera settings is in a resulting image that you've taken with your camera. And this is called EXIF data. There are a couple different ways to find EXIF data. Some websites such as Flickr and even SmugMug will actually show you the EXIF data of certain images. But you can also find the EXIF data on a computer or a smartphone. On an Apple computer, I can hit Command-I on a JPEG image and I can see the EXIF data on the little information panel that shows up. I can also use photo editing software or a browser such as Adobe Bridge or Adobe Lightroom and go into the info settings for a specific image. And the information panel will show me all of the exact settings that are used to take this photo. Reviewing EXIF data is really handy for you personally because you can go back to old photos that you've shot and you can see the exact settings that you've used. But it's also really handy as you're starting out because you can also look at the EXIF data of other people's photos. So if you see a really cool image online and you're wondering what settings did that person use, try this trick. Download the photo to your computer and look for the EXIF data using a program like Adobe Bridge. and you can see exactly what settings that person used to achieve the image. Now, this doesn't work all the time because there's also the ability for photographers to wipe off the EXIF data or not display it. So it may or may not work, but it's still a really handy skill to know as you're starting out and trying to figure out how to shoot photos. On that note, EXIF data is readily available on most photos, but it's not available on videos. So if you want to find video settings or save video settings for your own knowledge, then you have to have a manual process to document those settings because they won't be recorded automatically to your video files. So that concludes this little introduction video, but stay tuned because I'll have more videos talking specifically about aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. I'll be defining each of those terms and showing you exactly how to modify those settings in your camera to achieve different images. And we'll also be talking in the process about how to get off of auto and onto manual and semi-manual modes. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.